a goal of more than 70 million meals a year. I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Newsmakers. With me is Joe Arthur. He is Executive Director of the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jill.
You have what you call a bold goal in place. It's a 10-year plan, but let's start with where we are right now. On an annual basis, you serve about 35 million meals.
That's right. Our last fiscal year, which just ended in June, we served 35 million meals throughout our network. So we essentially are looking to double that to reach everybody in need.
Talk to us, though, about who you are feeding on a regular basis. You work with partners, you work with different organizations throughout this region, but who are you feeding? Who is utilizing these services on a regular basis?
For starters, the largest group is actually children through their families. About a third of our clients are children. Last year, we served about 400,000 different people. So about 130,000 children are in need of meals and are not where the next ones are coming from at some point during the month. Elderly is another probably 9 or 10%. And then folks who are in economic straits, the job market, et cetera. We've all been hearing a lot about that, and that continues to be a strain. So economic reasons as well.
It's not just a matter of feeding people, not just a matter of getting food to people. You want the food to be high quality, you want it to be nutritious. As such, you've developed a variety of different programs, including a produce program and a milk program.
Right. We used to traditionally just rely on shelf-stable product, but we've really added fresh produce and fresh milk to round out the menu. And now about 20% of our distribution is fresh produce, which is fairly typical for what people buy in the grocery store. Also, meats, frozen meats are very important as well.
That's a challenge when it comes to distribution and making sure that the food stays fresh as it is allocated with your partners, as it's distributed to those who do require this food.
That's right. We've been building our infrastructure for over 5 years. So at our facilities, at our member agency partners, our trucking, those are all refrigerated trucks, so that the whole cold chain is protected. It's taken 5 years to build what we have now.
And with this 10-year goal, the bold goal, the goal is to provide more than 70 million meals, up from the 35 million a year that you're providing at this point. As we mentioned, you work with a variety of partners at this point. Do you need to find new partners, more partners, different types of partners in order to reach that goal?
We do. In order to reach that goal, we have to have new partners. Our existing network is great, but we're adding what we call Fresh Expresses. Those are mobile pantries. We've added quite a few. We're actually up to 77 of those, which is a great deal, but we'll actually grow more of those. We're looking to healthcare. Our healthcare partners, they also are trying to help people eat better, healthier living. And for low-income people, that's really where we work. So it's a natural partnership, and that's just beginning now, and we look forward to really growing that.
And you are looking for people to get involved with this goal as well.
Right. We couldn't do this without volunteers, donors, both donors of food and funds. That's going to be a significant part. Fundraising is really important, but also food raising. So running food drives, companies, farms. Farms are a big part of our work, but there are many more Pennsylvania farms out there. We're looking to increase those partnerships as well.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Joe Arthur. He's Executive Director of the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. I'm Jill Horner for Comcast Newsmakers.
All right, we are now going to shift over to Joe Arthur taking the mic, and then we'll go through our slides. And if there are any questions, please for now type them in your question box and send them, and then at the end we'll open up the discussion live with either through your mic if you're using a microphone or your telephone. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm glad to be with you live. It's always a little bit disconcerting for me to see myself on the screen, but now it's going to be good to talk to you. And thanks for joining us today. I'm really happy that we had a kind of folks from around our service territory joining us. So we talked, for those that were able to attend the Agency Appreciation Conference in September. This is the slideshow that I referred to, but that was a short speech, if you will, looking to take a little bit more time and get in a little deeper. But also I want you to know that at the end of our panel today, there's going to be plenty of time for question and answer, and I think that's where a tremendous amount of value is. So as you're watching or participating in the webinar and you have questions, please jot them down so we make sure that we catch that in the Q&A. So I'm going to start with the slides right now, and on the screen you should see our vision, mission, and values listed. Our vision has been the same really since this organization started back in the early 1980s. We truly believe no one should be hungry. I think the biggest change with embarking on the bold goal with you, with all of our partners, is we're trying to get to no one will be hungry. 3 good nutritious meals a day, pretty much guaranteed in our service territory regardless of your economic situation. So as you saw on the Comcast Newsmakers report, that's essentially a doubling of the amount of meals of what we provide right now with your help around 27 counties. So our mission, fighting hunger, improving lives, and strengthening communities, stays incredibly valid and germane throughout those 10 years. So there's no reason to change that mission. We are fighting hunger, obviously, but the improving lives and strengthening communities will get more and more emphasis as we move forward, because as we help people in need live better, healthier lives, that is strengthening the community for everyone. And then our values that we adopted formally 2 years ago are, this is who we are to the core, this is what we stand for, and meeting the bold goal also requires us to live these values every day. Respect for one another, urgency about this mission, stewardship, critically important to our donors of food, donors of funds, have complete trust that we're using those resources wisely that they're providing to us. Obviously, integrity, accountability ties in with stewardship. That means each and every employee being accountable for their place in this. Diversity, very, very important. We have a very diverse clientele, and it's critical that we are diverse, and not just in the traditional sense of diversity, but also in experiences that we bring to the table. So that includes listening to our clients, listening to our partners and their interaction with clients, and developing our services and making them better based on the client's viewpoint. Collaboration is critical. We cannot close the meal gap without collaborating with you, our existing partners, but also with new partners. We mentioned healthcare as being a future huge collaboration that we're in the beginning stages of right now. And then customer service to you, our partners, service to our donors, service to our farms, service to our healthcare providers as we get deeper, and at the end of the game, but most important, service to our end clients. So stated in printed words, the bold goal is by 2025, our collaborative network will provide access to enough nutritious food for everyone struggling with hunger in each of our 27 central Pennsylvania counties that we serve. Some very important words in there, certainly the timestamp. We felt it was essential that we have a plan that ends with everyone having enough nutritious food. That's not common in the nonprofit network. It's not common anywhere, but we believe it's really important to measure not only what we're doing, but how much work remains to be done, and then put an end timeline on it. Collaboration, we talked about, is critical. Providing access to enough food. And that means even though folks might be in rural areas that's very hard to access, that we're finding ways to get to them, whether it's through our member agency network or through SNAP or food stamp benefits, school-based meals, whatever it takes to get to people no matter where they are. This is a little hard to read, and all of this information is available for anyone that wants to do a deeper dive into it. But this is kind of the centerpiece of the meal gap measurement that we relied on to tell us how much work yet remains to be done. So this is a very sophisticated analytics that are provided by Feeding America, our national affiliate, that gets down to the county level. And they also have this for just children as well. So we know that data by children as well. And also they can actually get down to the House, the U.S. House district level, which for advocacy purposes is very helpful. But anyway, it takes into account not only poverty statistics, but also folks that are not living within measured poverty, but based on their income levels are probably in need of food assistance. That's very important because, as we all know, we are not just serving those that are within the bounds of measured poverty. Those numbers are too low to really take into account who all we're serving. We are all serving many working poor who actually are above the federal poverty level, but not sustainable. And we know that that's where the growth has been over the last, really since the recession in particular. So the meal gap takes into account all of that. It takes into account local cost of living, including food pricing, but all cost of living. And it works through a calculation to figure out how many people are in need, and then converts that to a meal level, actual numbers of meals estimated that are needed. So using that as a base case, we developed our own analytics internally that tell us by county through the years how many meals we would need to be providing county by county, and then for our service territory as a whole through 2025, how many meals we need to reach providing that number of meals and healthier meals to close the meal gap. So for fiscal year 2015, which just ended in June, in all of our work, including SNAP outreach as well as providing meals, and also an estimate of what is provided to people in need with our member agencies, that the food not coming from Central Penn Food Bank, it's about 36.4 million meals. Well, we essentially have to pretty much double that by 2025. And these numbers also take into account that there will be some population growth as well. And this is a base case scenario. This does not assume a recession. This does not assume a massive recovery either. So this is kind of a base case scenario. And as we move through time, county by county, we'll be measuring and determining the actual meals we're providing. Feeding America will be providing us annual updates of the amount of meals that are really needed. And we'll be updating our data year to year to year to year to see how we're doing. But at this point in time, looking out 10 years, consider this a base case estimate. So as we get further in, this is that same type of data, but as a percentage for growth rates. And while we don't want to get lost in the individual counties' actual numbers, what I do want to point out to you is as you look through the counties, you're going to see, particularly in the early years, about 5 columns in, fiscal year 2015 just ended, those are actual growth rates. then 2016, 2017, 2018, you're going to see some pretty wildly different percentage growth rates that are required. And that reflects conditions as they are in those counties, where we stand in terms of our overall network service levels, and then an estimate of, with our increased tactics, how well we expect to do growth-wise in those counties as we move forward, putting a lot of the emphasis on the first 3 years of the plan, so that out in time, as we get further down the road, we're not leaving the heavy lifting for the latter years and then finding that we can't get there. So we're trying to front load the work. We're trying to front load the growth and the resources needed to get there. Do the work now, and we can always adjust later. Best case scenario is economics improve for people in need and we start seeing less demand. The bad news is nothing that we see looking out tells us that that's going to be the case. Whether you're talking state budget impasse to job situations, we're not expecting to grow our way out of this economically. We would love to see that. We'll do everything we can to help that, but we're expecting to need to actually provide the meals. And Maria, I'm going to ask you to give me a time check if I'm going too slow or whatever. So if my pace needs to, yeah, okay, all right, great. So it's very important, as we noted in our bold goal statement, nutrition is important. So foods to encourage is our way of describing that. We know that nutrition analytics can be very, very deep and very, very hard to understand and explain. And at the end of our work here, we have to be able to relate to clients. So Feeding America has put a lot of work into adopting something called a Foods to Encourage system. It's easy to understand, and it weights by product category how well we're doing on a scale from 0%, like soda, to 100%, like produce, of value of Foods to Encourage. So using that framework, we've back analyzed, looked back in time over our last 5 years to see how we did based on the food that we distributed, and calculated that through time, and then looking forward, made projections based on where we need to focus and what impact that has on our Foods to Encourage measurements and ratios. So if we look back to 2010, at the very beginning of our produce program, when we were just getting rolling, we had less than 1 million pounds of produce. All things considered, we were about a 51% Foods to Encourage. As we move forward in time, ramping up fresh produce, putting more of a focus on healthier eating, we've increased to 61%, which is actually 60% is actually the goal Feeding America has set for us. So we've actually achieved that goal, but moving forward in time, we know that we have to be even better. So I'm going to proceed forward. This is a graphical view, and I think it's a little easier to understand this way. So looking over that same time period, the colorful parts of the bar graph are the foods we want to encourage, with produce at the top. And then down at the very bottom, there is something called other, which is all of the snack food and foods that really aren't considered to be terribly nutritious. So we continue to include that in our product set because we know our clients appreciate having at least some of that. We all, tend to like a little bit of snacks and those types of things. We just don't want to make that a focus, but we're willing to provide it. But how we're going to improve our Foods to Encourage is by continuing to build our supply of the really good stuff. And that's actually been our pattern over the last 5 years, and we're very proud of what that graph looks like. But also included in good foods to encourage, it's not just produce. Dairy is in there. Our wonderful USDA bonus food that we receive is very good food, and it's important that we're providing the grains and we're providing meats and other good foods. So we can't just focus on produce. It's a huge part of what we're going to do, but we have to do all this other sourcing and distributing as well. And our member agency network has been incredibly powerful in adopting the hard work it takes to do this, and with our help, building the infrastructure to do this, with our capacity building grants, and on and on. And the folks that are on this webinar, I know, are kind of our early adopters, and I appreciate that you're on the call trying to figure out how do we go further with this, and we'll look to you to maybe be the examples to some of our other partners who aren't as well along. So we appreciate that, and we want to hear your thoughts on that later. So this is in terms of pounds. A little bit hard to get our arms around all these numbers, but if we might focus on produce, last fiscal year, that number says about 5.8 million pounds. We are trying to grow that substantially each year, particularly early on. We're trying to hit 10 million pounds by the end of, or during fiscal year 2018. For this year that we're in right now, fiscal 2016, we're about 4 months in. I will tell you that we are above pace to hitting that 7 million pound goal. We had a tremendous harvest season. New farms came on, incredible sharing really around the state. Our member agencies that do fresh produce have been incredibly powerful in getting that out to people in need. If we continue to hit our budget through the rest of the year in terms of produce flow, on top of what we've already done, we're going to blow away that 7 million pounds, which is a great start. And then across the board, those are very challenging numbers. But you can see as we move through time, and we're well on track this fiscal year across the board, we will grow that foods to encourage ratio. But most importantly, our clients, our mutual clients, are going to see more and more of the better food during that distribution. This is it graphically, which again I think is easier for us to understand. Similar to the graph before, but if you remember the previous graph, our 2016 number looked like a huge bar on the right. Well, now when you compare that to 10 years rolling forward, you get an idea of the challenge that we all have to actually meet that bold goal. When you get down to actually looking at the food flow, this is a challenging, bold goal, but it's doable. We are proving in 2016 that we can do this. We can do it together, and as long as we continue to grow those new sources of food, bring in the new collaborations, the new donors, we will get there. Year by year by year, we will get there. We have a proven track record with you, with our partners, of getting it done. So we feel very confident, but this is what we show to new partners. This is what we're trying to do. This is the kind of thing that they need to invest in. So that's what 10 years of growing our Foods to Encourage looks like to meet the bold goal. A little bit hard for you to see. This analysis takes into account the primary components of getting those meals out. So in addition to our physical flow of food that we all do, this takes into account our increasing SNAP outreach that we're looking to do. It takes into account work that we're doing with school districts to increase the amount of school breakfasts and after school meals and summer meals that are going to go into providing meals. So those big three areas, two of which are fairly new to us. SNAP outreach, we've been doing it for a few years with an outside party doing the work. Well, we've taken that in-house, and we now have a SNAP outreach department, and we're going to grow that substantially. and work with our member agencies for referrals. That has started. We're off to a great start with some of our partners, but we want to do more of that. And we have a SNAP helpline that's up and running to help people work through the application process remotely so that 98% of the work is done before anyone needs to step into a county assistance office. So if you are interested in doing that work, we definitely want to hear from you. Tara Davis, our manager, wants to hear from you. So anyway, this brings into account all of the components to providing the meals. We're going to need money. You're going to need money. You do your own fundraising, and we encourage that, that you continue to do that and do more of it. And we need to do that ourselves. So this gives a picture of our fundraising over the last 7 or 8 years. We have worked very hard to build that nice, steady increase. That takes people. We've had to hire more staff. We now have a director of development, Jennifer Powell. She is building our fund development function. We've had good success, but like the other graph, I'm not sure if we have the fundraising graph, but it looks a lot like the Foods to Encourage graph. We have to grow our fundraising substantially over the years to afford to do this healthier food, to transport all of that healthy food, to continue to grow that SNAP outreach department from 3 full-time equivalent people to 10, in 3 years. That all takes money. So we're reaching out to more and more partners and more foundations and so forth to bring in the funding for that, and of course more individual donors and companies as well. This is a very, very busy graph. I don't want to spend too much time in the detail of the graph, but there are many things to measure within our food banking network here, and it's not just all about food. There are volunteer measurements that we need to be looking at. How many people are helping us? How many hours are they putting in? We need to be looking at how our stewardship. We need to be constantly looking at, are we maintaining our efficiency? Are we improving our efficiency so that we're not spending more per pound of food to do our work? We need to be measuring those SNAP meals. We need to be looking very, very closely and monitoring what our member agencies are reporting in terms of number of people they're serving. The types of food that's being served, and on and on and on. Fundraising, there's a lot of measurements involved, and with the help of Feeding America, we've selected a set that we can watch as a dashboard to really monitor across all areas of our work how well we're doing, including even employee retention. We have a great team at the food bank. I think you agree with that. But we don't want to go off track. We want that to continue even as we grow. So there's a lot of measurements we need to be keeping an eye on. And this is part of, professionally managing our work so that you can rely on us for your work. And then financial projections. You can't get all of this done if you can't manage your finances. And that is a focus of our management here, is really keeping on top of the finances, making sure that we are maintaining top stewardship and also raising the money we need to do to make sure that we can meet the bold goal. So this is a very condensed income statement, or P&L, over the 10-year period. And the things that I want to highlight are some of the ratios, but starting with something called the net surplus. That measures revenue minus expenses. Over many, many years, we were able to develop an endowment fund, which is part of our overall reserves. We feel that our reserves are strong. Our statistics on our reserves measure well against other food banks around the country. So from here forward, including continuing to invest our capacity building grants for our member agencies, we believe break even is the appropriate target for our financial picture. So that's what we've done. We've basically targeted our expense base and our revenue base to close the meal gap, but to essentially do that at pretty much a break-even level. So that's important. That's very important. We're blessed that we have strong reserves and we can start from that strength, but that really also means that as a regional food bank, we're saying that we're going to have the pedal right to the floor in terms of spending our revenue. Number of meals gives you an idea. That's the summary level of growing the meals through the years to get to the 79 million we talked about. Next metric is really important, the operational cost per meal. We are tasking ourselves, regardless of food prices, regardless of economic conditions, all of that, we need to maintain our cost per meal. So we start at around 22 cents this fiscal year and end around 21 cents 10 years from now. Not many organizations are going to make a commitment over 10 years to basically outpace the cost of living increase. We are. We believe that we can grow and grow efficiently and get better and better at what we do with your help and raise the volunteer help and all of that sort of thing so that we can keep our costs absolutely at an absolute level at around 21 cents, 22 cents per meal. Per meal, that is, not per pound, per meal. Part of that is SNAP outreach too. That's a very efficient way to get meals to people. School-based meals, that's efficient. That's important to this as well. FTEs here means full-time equivalent employees. We don't need to get caught up too much in that, but included in that expense base is a growth in employees to get, to close the meal gap. So we are going to be growing our staff here, but we're going to be watching that, literally week to week, month to month, to make sure that we're staffing to what we need to do and what we can afford to pay in terms of our payroll base and not getting above that. So there's an optimum level of this workforce that supports you, and we're going to watch that very closely, but it will grow. And then meals per FTE is a way of measuring at the full-time equivalent level, and you can see through time that we're not only projecting an increasing number, we're going to hold ourselves to that. So this will help us determine if we have the right mix of employees for the amount of work that we're doing in terms of closing the meal gap. So we're expecting to get more efficient per full-time equivalent employee as well. So that's a lot of sort of information that controller type or a CFO type would like to see. That's my background, so you're kind of stuck with that. But it is important. It's very important to measure. So that gets us to the end of the slideshow presentation. I'm going to turn it back over to Maria.
Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing your vision for our Central Pennsylvania and our member agencies. We want to hear from the rest of our panel. Any comments, anything that you would like to add to this discussion for our overview?
Well, I'm going to call on someone.
Okay,
because
I would volunteer.
And the first person I'm going to call on is Brad Peterson. You know him as Director of Communications and Marketing, and I just want him to share a little bit about the messaging to the public that that's involved here.
Well, as you know, we do our best to message throughout the 27 counties, and I've begun the last couple of years actually measuring where we reach into those counties. So I have a good idea of what the mix is from Harrisburg and beyond, whether that's Altoona or in the northern tier or whatever. Strategically, we are looking to work with you more to get the message out as to what this bold goal means and how it affects you and the clients you serve locally. So I will be reaching out to you and others like you at pantries, shelters, etc., to get the message into your local media, your daily newspapers, your weeklies, your radio, your TV, to make it a local message on how that impacts everyone in your area. So the messaging will be very consistent, talking about how we're serving people, talking about the nutrition that we're offering, the education, and how we actually expect to get from where we are now to doubling the amount of meals, and doing that in a very strategic manner. So you can expect to hear from me in the coming weeks and months as we keep moving forward to keep this top of mind in your areas, and you can help us with clients and with stories to make everyone aware of what we're doing and how we're going to do that.
Yeah, and we think that's really important. As we all know together, there's a lot of myths out in the public that challenge us in our work. So, it's really about winning more hearts and minds. We know we have our dedicated donors and volunteers, but we really need to create more of those, and that really takes the winning of hearts and minds. So with your help in the right kind of messaging at the right times in the right places, understanding that we have limited budgets, we need your help on doing that. There's a lot of great forums to be out there in, but everything from a billboard to radio when it's affordable to a church pulpit, it's and everything in between. So we've really increased the amount of messaging and work we've been doing the last few years, but we know that we need to do a lot more.
And the easy way to do that is to buy advertising. And we really do very little of that. I mean, the video you saw earlier from Comcast, that's something that we work with Comcast. They offer that to us free of charge. And we do probably 4, 5, 6 of those Comcast newsmakers every year, talking about different topics, talking about things that we are working on. And we'll be looking for more ways to do that in your area that are free of charge, at earned media as it's called, that we can make the best impact and the best return on the investment to keep people understanding and aware of what we're doing and the great work you're doing in your local community.
And we're in your local community. You are the voice that they're looking for. You are the story. But where it makes sense for us to join you, please invite us. Please get in touch with Brad. We're willing to travel all over our territory, and earned media is something that the media outlets are looking for. They're really looking for that kind of content, and often have many openings to do that. So if you do that already, that's wonderful. We'd love to do it with you. Show them the partnership, and if you haven't done that, Brad can give you guidance on how that works. It's really not a world to be afraid of. It's a world to leverage, and it is free. And that's can't beat that. So that's the messaging. We wanted to talk a little bit about that. And Georgia, Director of Agency Relations, a little bit from you.
Hi, everybody. It's almost afternoon, but good morning. From the agency relations side of the BOLD goal, certainly our department continues to look for new partners, keep the current partners happy, and assist them in whatever way we can to serve their clients differently, introduce them to nutrition initiatives and activities, and also to expand distribution with new partners. So as part of our BOLD goal strategy, what our department looked at was identifying gaps within the service territory. Certainly we're not going to tackle all 27 counties in the very first year, but what we looked at was those counties that were deficient in pounds per person in poverty or meals, as well as SNAP enrollment. And so we targeted about 5 or 6 different counties throughout both the Harrisburg service territory and the Williamsport area. We are doing some GIS, what's called GIS mapping, where we're looking at pockets and areas of poverty by zip code, whether we have partners in those areas currently or whether there are agencies there that are working with other what we call lead agencies throughout the counties. And how can we get more inventory into those areas? So that's some of the work that we're doing on the back end. This summer, I wanted to just piggyback on Joe's comment on the video about how we're addressing those pockets of poverty, and one of those is our Fresh Express program. And so with the influx of all the produce this summer, we actually took what was last summer about 50 different sites for our Fresh Express program and expanded that to over 80 sites this summer. And more often than not, those sites were developed and implemented in areas where there might not have necessarily been bricks and mortar food pantries, but locations where we could find sponsors and organizations to facilitate distribution. So that's really, really expanded distribution and certainly helped to add numbers to our produce distributions and our foods to encourage this summer. Joe referenced the capacity building grants. If a program is limited in space or they don't have refrigeration or freezer space, our capacity grants have helped to provide those resources so that agencies can take more of the more perishable items, the more nutritious items. And so we continue to work with agencies on that. Educational opportunities, this is a prime example of one of those. We are increasing outreach to our 27 counties through webinars so that we can help educate you and find out what topics you are interested in. We can do webinars on them. We're doing regional workshops. Certainly if you participated in the annual Agency Appreciation Conference, you know that we offered lots of opportunities and great workshops and speakers. We want to help you and to educate not only your coordinators but also the volunteers that you work with in your role in your communities. Our wellness and nutrition programs continue to expand. We offer opportunities for agencies to come to the warehouse and work with volunteer chefs to learn new ways to prepare food, new ways to use perhaps inventory that's unfamiliar to your program. That's been very, very successful. So on a weekly basis, we have what we call Date with the Chef here in our kitchen. We've also expanded our wellness programming with healthcare communities, including the Hershey Medical Center, in that we're doing partnership projects with the Med Center, Penn State Cooperative Extension, and doing health screenings at local programs. We've expanded that this year, which has been very beneficial and very positive for participants as well as the volunteers that are working with that program. And last but not least, Joe mentioned the SNAP outreach efforts that we've expanded. We had 2-3 staff in that program when we started it. We now have 2 full-time, 2 part-time, and an intern that's with us full-time, working on that, reaching out again to those target counties to get more information out to folks that might be eligible for benefits. We provide a one-stop shop, if you will, to folks that are intimidated perhaps with going through their county assistance office, so we provide screening and online application assistance. We are pursuing funding opportunities with the Department of Human Services. Feeding America offers grants for that. We're working with AARP to reach seniors, the Area Agency on Aging, college and university communities, a whole host of different ways to get the SNAP program out in front of people to hopefully connect them, even if it's with a small amount of benefits, it does supplement their needs. So those are some of the activities that we're working on. The list goes on and on, but those are the highlights.
Thank you, George.
And then in the interest of saving enough time for the Q&A, I just wanted to mention one further project that's of particular importance. I know we have some folks on the webinar from State College and Lycoming County. Our Williamsport facility, which has been for many years more of a distribution facility, we're going to be expanding that in 2016 work will begin in 2016 to make it more of a food hub, similar to the Harrisburg facility, not as large, but with all the elements, including the demonstration kitchen, much more freezer and cooler capacity, et cetera, much bigger and better docks. That'll allow us to operate at a much higher level and have the holistic services there that we have here in Harrisburg. So good things coming in the northern tier. That's part of the bold goal strategy. Many of the counties that we serve out of our Williamsport facility, we have large gaps, and this will allow us to better serve and also increase our overall capacity. So we're not going to go too deep into that right now in the interest of time, but know that that's coming in 2016. So I'm going to stop talking. I think we have Q&A time coming up.
Yes. Thank you to those folks that have been sending in some questions. We appreciate your time and your feedback. A question here is Fresh Express covered by the state grants, or does the pantry pay for the produce?
The Fresh Express program is currently primarily funded by the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. We have some extensions of that in that we're working with the military community. We have some sponsorships coming in from a variety of local organizations to help to sponsor that program. But there is not basically any state funding of that currently.
Yeah,
very limited, if at all.
The Fresh Express sites are in the hardest hit communities, often a low-income housing center. The housing center will not have funding to support this, so we seek private funding. What we do have intentions of doing going forward, we are all hoping for whenever the state does have a budget, and nobody knows when that is, but in addition to the state food purchase program, there's a Pennsylvania agricultural surplus system that looks to have support by both sides of the aisle, and including the General Assembly as well as the governor. If that funding comes through, that will help free up more agricultural surplus, meaning produce, everything really, and allow more funding to help the farmers do the pick and pack out, all that sort of thing. And that will allow us to have more product to share with all agencies, including Fresh Expresses. So that's a different form of state funding. We've been advocating hard for it, but it'll be a big help for everybody.
Another question came in saying, is Fresh Express available all year? And that was somewhat covered by Joe. So
It is. It actually is at its greatest when we have the most farm product. So we are now coming down off Pennsylvania's harvest season. So our flow to Fresh Expresses will diminish. It'll still be a significant amount of product flow, but we will reduce the number of frequencies and so forth at different sites to match our available food flow. But first and foremost, a member agency network needs to be served. So the Fresh Express flow is kind of a balancing piece to make sure no food goes to waste, but our member agency network is served. So.
Are there any other questions out there? There is one pending that we will address at the end.
Type faster.
Type faster. Or we can unmute your phone. We would definitely love to hear some voices out there. It's a great method, but we'd love to hear if anyone has a voice. You can, anyone has a question, you can raise your little hand. There's a little picture, and we will unmute your phone to hear your actual voice, because we know you're out there. We know we have some wonderful participation. We see your name. So raise your hand, type in your question, and the last couple minutes here. All right, the beauty of this webinar is that it is being recorded, and we will share with you. The last question here is, I'd love to have the slides to print out and share with my team, and absolutely, we are going to message all of those that participated in this webinar, not only the audio of it and the visual of it, but also the PowerPoint slides that you can then print out for you and your agency.
And we are very interested as you think through what this means in your area. We really are interested in your local ideas to move the bold goal forward in your locality. So reach back out to Maria, for that. We have Ryan here on the analytics, so he's a contact. Maria will provide the contacts to you.
Sure, absolutely, and I can do that in the follow-up email that will take place today and in the next week. But we want to have Ryan Fritchie, our data analyst, just touch on a few points here before we end.
Hi, I'm Ryan. This was really fun to get my feet wet and hands dirty in the whole bold goal process of this. It was a big learning experience for me. Look forward, I'll piggyback on what I think Georgia or Joe said. We are in the infant stages of some more technically advanced mapping that you might see in the near future, the next few years down the road. What else here?
About individual agency
Snapshots. Yeah, if you have any questions, any individual agencies or pantry soup kitchens, you have any questions how you can individually affect the bold goal or what your goals are in your own county territory, feel free to reach out to me or agency relations, and I'll be happy to give you any information, poundage information, agency statistics that you may need to help understand your role in the bold goal individually.
All right. Two last questions just flew in. Are you a partner in the Governor's Food Security Partnership?
Yes, we are. And actually, we were blessed to participate a few weeks ago in the inaugural summit. And we were part of the nonprofit panel. There were 3 different panels. As we move forward, we're actually waiting for follow-up next step sort of information from the governor's office. We were really happy that involved not only the Department of Agriculture, but 6 different departments of the state government. So, and it does have the governor's not only blessing, but emphasis that it moves forward and becomes, and those 6 departments work together kind of along the lines of closing the meal gap. The state also is taking that view. So we really are very well plugged into that. And what that means is what we learn from you, we share with them so that they understand how things really work in the communities. And they have given us a really high profile role in that flow of information. So anything that you ever want to share on that front, please share it with us so we can carry the message.
And our last one is from someone saying, no questions from me, but very thankful for what here at Central Pennsylvania, what we are doing, and also the quality that you're putting into it. Well, we also want to say we would not exist without our partner agencies. Right. So we are thankful for all that you do and for the time that you have spent here with us today. We are thankful to Joe as our leader and our members of our leadership team here in Harrisburg and our folks in Williamsport. Shout out to Eric and Jamie and the Agency Relations Department, Jennifer and Pam, that are joining us as well. So if you have any questions here for our Harrisburg agencies, please feel free to email me, Maria DiSabella, training coordinator. If you have questions for our Williamsport team, please contact Eric and or Jamie up in Williamsport. We're going to end this, so thank you so much for your time, your attention, and for all this as pretty much our pioneer webinar. So we thank you for that and for being part of this bold goal together. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.